my goal when I started was to get Galveston County to be a no-kill county.
Same.
It can be done.
Yeah.
It actually can be done. But it's hard.
It's like a big machine that has to work together really well.
It does.
Yeah.
There has to be a lot more resources.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is another episode of the Lifeline Podcast, and we have Tiffany Hill here from SNIP of League City, Spay-Neuter Initiative Program. She got SNIP off the ground. We were just talking about kind of starting in 2016, and now it's grown. I know you do you said close to $1 million in surgeries every year, right?
In business, yes.
In business,
Mhm.
yeah. So that's amazing. And then you're expanding. So we'll talk about that too.
are.
That's
We're doubling.
exciting. Okay, so I have some questions we don't have to stay on all of these, but just to get the conversation flowing. So let's start at the beginning. When did you first know that animal welfare was going to be a huge part of your life? Just in general.
A dog named Chip.
A dog named Chip.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm already excited.
Chip.
Okay.
I think I met you at that time, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah, so I went to Galveston County Animal Resource Center
Uh-huh.
to adopt a dog named Chip.
Okay.
Actually, his name was Boss.
Boss.
Yes, and we changed it to Chip. And he's still with me to this day, and that was 8 years ago.
Wow.
You
So
and Tony,
before
remember Tony?
Tony, I don't remember Tony.
Yeah, she worked there.
Okay.
Maybe it wasn't you. I know Jamie was there.
Jamie was there, has been there for a
Yeah.
long time. So that's awesome. And did you do animal welfare stuff at all when you were a kid or not really?
Oh, constantly.
Like saving stuff off the street?
Yes.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Did you have a preference
Hide them.
over cats or dogs or wildlife or?
Didn't matter.
I could see that. That's why I asked. I was like, I could see you bringing everything home.
If it had a heartbeat, it deserved to live.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. And then Chip, the dog from Galveston County. So then is that what inspired you to start SNIP in 2016? Or how did you get to the spay neuter? That's something that you wanted to start.
So I started fostering.
Okay.
And I'm a nurse, so I started doing medical fostering. And I was getting them out, getting them in faster than I could get them out. And so I thought, this is really a bad issue. This is when it really opened my eyes, and some of the abuse and the neglect and the hardships that the animals go through on the streets. And so at that point, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do, open up a program. And I was driving down I-45, and I just heard, kind of like a voice, not really in my head, not really a voice, but I heard in my head to go home and do it. And I did. I went home, opened up a Facebook page, and said, "This is what I want to do," and started announcing it all over Facebook. And
That's
before
awesome.
you know it, it took off. And so we were a voucher program.
So I didn't know this. So how did the voucher program work?
So I would knock on doors.
Okay.
Neighborhoods. It was rather embarrassing, but I'd knock on doors and I'd beg for money, and I would stand on the street corners and I would beg for money, and I would have garage sales and I would beg for money, and I would get on Facebook and beg for money, and I'd take that money and I would spay and neuter 3 animals a week.
Okay.
And then I started noticing that, which is a lot when you're starting out.
That is impressive. Yeah.
So it was 12 animals a month. But then I started noticing on Facebook that, somebody just had a litter of kittens or a litter of puppies. And I'm like, well, there went my 12 animals. I mean, that's, I just completely undid what I did. So then I increased it. I think it was to 5 animals a week, and it really just wasn't moving fast enough. And Animal Alliance was there, and they were the only ones there. And their wait list was just long. And I said, you know what? We need more resources.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking about opening up my own clinic. Wow. Didn't know what I was doing, but I did it.
Did you incorporate as a 501c3 in for the voucher program?
For the voucher program.
Okay. Awesome.
And then I did more begging and more pleading and more door knocking and more curb standing out in the road and with a big sign. And that's it. And got enough money and opened up a clinic, and here we are. 6 years later.
Yeah.
And now we are doubling the size of our clinic. We are fixing to have way more, and we're going to offer low-cost x-rays. We're opening up our services. We're opening up We just increased our feral cat community cat program.
Yeah.
And so almost in 2 weeks, we'll be more than doubling our community cat program. So,
That's amazing because that's so needed.
yeah.
And I think that's good. I mean, we can jump around and that's on there. So, can you tell everybody more about how your feral program works? What's included in that? And I will say, SNP is the best price in town for a
Yeah.
feral cat.
Yeah.
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 We are at $23 a cat, and it has to be one cat per trap, and the
Okay.
cat has to come in the trap. For that $23, they get a surgery, whether it be a male or female, whether they be pregnant or neat, it doesn't really matter. But it
Mm-hmm.
has to be one cat per trap. We do ask that it not be an owned cat. Okay, if
Mm-hmm.
there's some financial hardships, just be honest with us, and we can work with that. Um, but needs to be a community cat or a feral cat. Um, and we do the surgery, we do the ear tipping, we do their rabies. A lot of cats will come in that have ear mites, so we'll treat the ear mites. Okay, we basically and if like the boys have the real big cheeks, and
Mm-hmm.
you could tell they've been fighting. We'll give them an antibiotic shot, or if the girl, looks like she's pregnant, or she was pregnant and is high risk for an infection, we'll give her an antibiotic shot. We try to do everything. We try to give them everything they can get for that one vet visit, because more than likely they're not going to ever see a vet again.
Yeah, that's gonna be like their one and only
That's their
visit.
one and only. So
Yeah.
we do as much for them as we can. We can't guarantee they won't get ear mites again. We
Yeah.
can't guarantee they won't get in a fight later on again. But we do everything we can to make sure that they're healthy when they go out the door. So, and that's
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's your capacity like now for that?
So we were doing three.
Uh-huh.
Effective this morning, we increased it up to five.
Okay.
And for 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, April 7th, we're going to be increasing it up to seven a day.
Wow.
Seven feral or community cats a day,
And
5 days a week. So,
5 days a week.
yeah,
That's incredible.
we were doing three cats a day, 3 days a week. So
Yeah.
we went from 3 to 25, 35, 35.
Okay, that's
So
amazing. And then it is still walk-in, right?
it
Walk-in
is still
based,
walking. Yes.
which is actually really good for feral cats because you never know when you're actually going to catch the cat. So
Right.
it's great to have that option to just
Yeah.
walk in.
And
Do
the thing
people
is,
need to
too,
do anything like call ahead or
no, you
no,
just come, you
just
show
come
up.
in?
You have to be there between 7:30 and 8:30. Just show up with your cat. Now, I will say we don't stop at seven. So let's say number 8, 9, and 10 come in. Okay.
Uh-huh.
We have you sign a sheet with the number of cats that you have and your phone number.
Mhm.
And then you can leave, go get something to eat, or you can stick around. Very often, we have no shows for surgeries, or somebody canceled the last moment. My cat's underneath the bed. I can't get him out. Can we reschedule? Or my dog is underneath the bed and won't come out. Or he got sick the night before, or what have you. Okay. So we have a lot of reasons why some people will cancel the morning of. So if they cancel, then we fill those slots with feral cats. So it's
Awesome.
not actually limited to seven. If we have any no shows or early morning cancellations, then we'll fill those slots. So a lot of times we can get 8, 9, and 10 in as well.
That's incredible.
So
Cool.
yeah, for $23.
For $23.
Yep,
And
same meal at McDonald's.
if you need trap
We
assistance,
have
you
traps.
have traps too? Okay,
Yes,
that's
and if we
awesome.
don't have traps, I will find you a trap.
Yeah,
So
we have
you can,
traps as well if people need them for
yeah,
programs.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
don't let the trap be a barrier to
Right.
getting the cat. If you feed them, definitely try to fix them.
We do ask, if you bring your cat in a trap, that you cover the trap with a sheet or a towel.
Mhm.
A lot of times the community cats, they might have little upper respiratory infections or things like that, but so we don't cross contaminate between communities.
Mhm.
So if let's say that you bring in three cats from one community, okay, but Mr. Smith brings in two cats from a totally different community, we don't let them combine. We don't cross. So we keep them all covered to minimize any cross contamination between the communities.
Awesome. And that also helps them feel a little bit more
It
safe.
does.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
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 Okay, cool. So, can you walk us through some of the other services SNP offers today besides your awesome feral cat program?
Yes, we do. We do spay and neuters for owned animals as well.
Mhm.
We do of course, all vaccines and wellness
Wellness.
checks, and then we also do minor illness and injuries. So,
Mhm.
like, let's say your cat got bit by another cat, okay, or something like that. We will treat it. We'll treat that as well. What we don't do is like hit by cars, very complex surgeries or bowel blockages. Those are very, or bladder blockages. Those are very complex surgeries that need more intensive care.
Mhm.
Because we are low cost, we are inundated with clients, and so we don't really have the ability to do one-on-one monitoring like that.
Mhm.
Okay, but we can definitely treat ear infections, eye infections. We'd also do very low cost dentals. Our
Awesome.
dentals are $199. Doesn't matter
Amazing.
how many extractions there are. Doesn't matter if they need any extractions or not. They automatically, everything is included for $199 except the blood work. If
Mm.
they are 6 years or older, we do ask for blood work just to make sure that there's not any abscesses or anything going on that we can't see.
Mm.
And that is $100.
Okay.
So for
Still a
less,
great deal.
yeah, still,
Still a
I mean,
great
it's
deal.
less than $300 for any kind of dental,
Yeah.
for an elderly pet, which is actually really low cost because, and we do the same. Everything is, we do the same exact thing that all the other veterinarians do. Okay, we
Mhm.
use the same medications, we do the same treatment plans, we do all of that. Okay,
Mhm.
um, we're just not in it for the money per se. So we're in it for the animal. I mean, a nonprofit has to make a profit to make, to survive,
Right.
but it goes back into the community, it goes back into the clinic, and it goes back into our employees.
Yeah, nobody's, like, making the big
I
bucks.
have never made a dime off of
Yes.
SNP.
That's
As a matter
another
of
good thing
fact,
to
I've
say, like,
spent a lot of money at SNP.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
You're not salaried at all at SNP,
Mm-mm.
you
Mm.
work a full-time job
Yes, I do.
outside of SNP.
Yes.
Yeah.
I work a full-time job, a very hectic job. None of our board members make any money.
Yeah.
We don't, none of us do. And as far as I'm alive, as long as I'm alive and it's up and running and I've got any say, no board member will ever profit from SNP.
Okay. That's amazing. Um, and how do you balance that? Like, how do you balance working and doing SNP? You're like, "I
Ve-
don't."
Very little sleep.
Very little sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very little sleep. I mean, today doing this, of course, I had to take off of work and come over here and do
I
this. So it's just,
appreciate that
yeah, no, it's no problem. It's little things like that. I mean, it's just, and actually
planning.
at the very beginning, it was a lot harder than it is now. SNP has gotten to where it's now kind of self-managing itself.
Yeah.
So it's really nice.
That's
Yeah, I
awesome.
kind of get to breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And just watch it grow.
watch it grow. That's right. So.
Um, why do you think low-cost spay-neuter access is such a crucial piece to the puzzle in ending overpopulation of pets and homelessness of
Oh, you
pets and
can't,
euthanasia of
yeah,
pets?
you can't kill what's not been born.
Mhm.
Yeah, you cannot kill what's not been born. So, you know, um, it's very sad to see some of these animals come in, especially being a medical foster. It was really heartbreaking to see some of the animals. And it wouldn't happen if people, when you have too much of something, you don't really value it anymore. And so we've got too many animals and people aren't valuing the animals' lives anymore. They give them away because of this or because of that. And I get that life has its hardships. I do. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think if we kind of cut that numbers down, it's better for the animals and it's better for us. We get to appreciate Spot a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the we see like a lot like I don't know, I see in different ways. Either you have a litter of puppies that was unwanted or kittens that was unwanted and so now you have to deal with that. Or for the person, there's just a lot of things if a pet's not fixed that the person might have to deal with, especially with like a female dog, just from like the
Large dog litters.
spotting,
Yeah.
from having to put a diaper on your dog every day,
Yeah.
or when an accidental pregnancy happens, sometimes that can cause the person to have to give up the pet or
Exactly.
puts them in a bad
Yeah.
situation. So,
Or if the dog can't have all the puppies or needs a C-section or
oh my
puppy gets
gosh,
stuck.
yes. I
Yes.
mean, the giving birth process for the dogs or the cats can be
Yeah.
not
Traumatic.
really traumatic
Yeah.
and require additional vet
Yeah.
care that somebody may or may not be able to
Yeah.
provide. So,
And if they don't have a litter and they go in to eat multiple times, there's something called pyometria,
oh, that's
which
a good
is
thing to talk about.
it's fatal if it's not treated. And it's extremely expensive.
Mhm.
You know, we do pyometria and again, very low cost. I think it's around 75 or $50, $7,500, somewhere in there. I think
Wow.
for the larger dogs, it's a little bit more,
Yeah.
but you go to a full service vet, okay, and it's well up in the thousands, because it is such a dangerous thing. So it's really, and spaying is the only cure. Once they get pyometria and they die a very slow, agonizing death. Pyometria is an infected uterus.
Okay, that's what I was gonna
Okay.
ask you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an infected uterus. So what happens is they go into heat and the uterus inflames and then, gets swollen and comes down and it increases the risk of infection. So they
Mm,
get an infection in the uterus and they can't get it out and they end up going septic and dying.
wow,
So,
that's terrible. And I don't know if this is
and
right
very
or wrong.
painful.
Is it's even more common if a dog's had puppies? Is that right or no?
It could go either way.
It can go
It
either
could go
way.
either
Okay.
way. We've seen them where the dog has never had puppies but never been spayed and gotten pyometria.
Yeah.
And we've seen them where they've had multiple litters and they've gotten pyometria. Now, and there's two different reasons for that. One of them is because multiple litters kind of wears the uterus out,
Hmm.
and so the uterus is not able to kind of bounce back or be as resistant to an bacteria. Where the ones that don't have never had puppies, it's just a constant irritation of the uterus because they go into heat, they come out of heat, they go back into heat, and they come out
Hmm.
of heat, they go right back into heat. I mean, it's I think every 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
3 weeks to 4 weeks. Yeah.
Wow. That's
So
crazy. Wow. Okay. Let's see.
kind of like us with our periods, you know. but
Oh boy.
but yeah, but I mean, we all
Yeah.
we can control it. I mean, we have resources that animals don't. So
When you say we can control it, that reminds me of when people are like, "Well, we don't spay and neuter humans." I'm like, "Well, we're making a
actually, we
decision." Well,
do.
that's true. That's true. But
I'd
we're
be
also like
safe.
making a decision to most of the time
Yeah,
to participate. Animals are not. They're not like, "Oh, I don't think I can feed these kittens. Maybe
right,
I shouldn't."
right.
Yeah,
And we
there's none of
also
that.
only generally give birth to one,
That's also true.
whereas animals don't. They give birth to multiples.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's probably for evolutionary reasons because the animals are gonna die. They have a high mortality rate.
exactly. They don't live near as long as we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another reason to fix the
Yeah.
pets. Oh, this is a good one. So I don't know how you feel about this one, but both of us tend to, and I hope you're okay with me saying this, both of us maybe tend to be more emotional or driven by passion. How do you think that helps in this work? And when do you think it can be like not helpful?
Oh,
Being like
that's
really
a loaded
passionate,
question.
emotional,
Yeah.
not
So
in a bad way,
yeah,
but
that's a loaded question. So yes, I am a very emotional person. I am, and if it's
yeah,
something I believe in, I will fight for it 100%.
yeah.
And if it's
Which
something
is how you got a spay neuter clinic off the ground standing on the side of
exactly,
the
yeah.
street. I was like, that sounds like me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. So yeah, and we love working with y'all. I mean, we do. We love
Yeah.
working with Lifeline. But yeah, they that it's just it takes that drive and makes my goal when I started was to get Galveston County to be a no-kill county. It
Same.
can be done.
Yeah.
It actually can be done. Um, but it's hard.
It's
You
like
know.
a big machine that has to
Mhm.
work together really
It
well.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. There has to be a lot more resources available. And there's a lot of people, I read on Facebook, I read one just recently, as a matter of fact, I want my dog to have a litter of puppies because I want my children to see I want them to have that experience. And we really have got to change that mindset because there's so much trauma outside your front door
Hmm.
going on that when you have those puppies you're literally adding to that trauma outside the front door, and so we have to change that mindset, and I think it is changing. I do
Hmm.
see a wave of m- more educated people, more concerning spaying and neutering. I see a lot more people speaking out about it now than I did 6 years ago, so I do believe it's changing. We just haven't got there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. That was actually on the question too. How have you seen it change
Yeah.
over the years? So
Do you
it's
not
going the
think
right
do
direction?
you see it changing?
I think so. I think I see it changing. I think one of the, I mean, I am a lot of times looking at things a lot more from like a shelter adoption perspective. And I think I look a lot at some of the shelters in our area, particularly municipal shelters, especially in Houston too, like all of them and how the public reacts to posts about animals that are going to be put down.
Yeah.
Um, and how like different shelters are trying to figure out the best way to like get animals out and that kind of thing. And I think what I see in that is a lot more shelters who are publicizing how many animals are dying. And I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of outrage about that, and I think I see that more than I did years ago, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of people realize the answer to that is spay neuter, so I guess that would be my answer is yes. I think people are
Yeah.
realizing, like, if we wanna actually change this,
Yeah.
that's what we need to do. And cruelty, that's something that I don't know a lot about, but I think it has to have something to do with answering the problem is I don't think our cruelty laws are, like, strict enough, and I don't think they're enforced well, and I think that's part of the problem
Yeah,
too. Would
well,
you
and the
agree?
mindset with the laws is that pets are property,
Yeah.
and that's a very sad thing. Until we start recognizing that that's a life, and granted, it may not be a human life, but it makes it no less than a human life. I mean, it's still a life.
Yeah.
And so they do feel pain, they do feel sadness, they do feel, they do grieve, they feel happiness. I have dogs, and I can tell
Yeah.
you right now, they go through all the emotions,
Yeah.
so every 5 minutes.
So true. Yeah.
So, with that being said, I mean that they deserve every chance.
They do.
So they do. Yeah.
They do. And you were saying earlier the trauma happening outside of people's front doors, and that's like somebody else in animal welfare one time I was talking to him and she's like, it's kind of like the mafia, isn't it? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she was like, once you're in it,
You're
you
in it.
can't get out
Yeah.
because you see how
Yeah.
it's just so weird. It's like it's a really dark hole in our society that
It
I don't
is.
think a lot of people
It's a
or maybe people
crisis.
know about. They just there's so many terrible things that happen, but
It's a
um
crisis. I mean,
it is.
people don't realize that when they shut their front door, you know, they're playing with Spot and Fido, and that's great. I love that. Okay. However, there's a whole entire other war going on the outside of your front door, and dogs are running loose in the streets. And we just had a situation just not too long ago in Houston. Yes, I think it was yesterday, or the day before yesterday, where an 81-year-old woman was mauled to death in her own home by the neighbor's pit bulls. You know, and I'd be very interested to know if those pit bulls were spayed and neutered,
Yeah.
because a lot of aggression comes from not being fixed. I mean, just literally spaying and neutering solves so many problems.
That's so true. And going back to the shelter perspective of that too is I think the shelters are in this big struggle, especially in Houston. I see the big discussion of do you take more in and care less about the live release rate because people are getting mauled on the street, or do you um try to do something different? And I think like my answer would be that we by taking animals off the street and like euthanizing them, that's something we've been doing for years and years and years that
Exactly.
hasn't been effective.
Exactly.
But I do get the fear of being mauled to death
And
on
they
the
did.
street.
Yes, they actually
Yeah.
closed intake for a while too. I know one particular shelter closed intake for a couple of years, and to
Wow.
try to force people to be more
Yes,
responsible.
I hear that a lot.
And that didn't work.
No.
It didn't work. And it's very unfortunate because honestly, that same shelter said, "Hey, we're going to do a massive spay and neuter event every 3 months." Okay, Houston Pet Set does it. They
Mhm.
spay and neuter. And so with those, if we could get more of those, I think we'd be surprised at how positive the outcome would be.
Yeah.
You know,
Changing it more to like
Mhm.
resource
Exactly.
oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you always will need a shelter in some sense because animals are always going to be in crisis in one way or another. Either their human goes into crisis
Right.
or we're probably a far away from not having strays on the street.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you'll always need a shelter, but
Definitely always
we
need a
want to be like
shelter.
a dumping ground, and that's what it has been for a long time.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able to just be like, I don't want my dog today.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or charge them. The
Yeah.
thing is, though, is that charging them, you're going to end up with the owners dumping them on the streets.
Well,
So
and we've tried to
it's
do this
really,
like owner surrender program where we have the owner surrender work with us and we try to place the dog right into another home. And we're not very strict about the reason why. Like we try to maybe counsel people somewhat, but I've had some reasons where like I don't really think that's a reason to surrender your pet, but like who am I to judge? And for that reason, we're like, well, let's bring them into the program and try to place them. And it's been somewhat successful. We've also had like 3 or 4 dogs that have been dumped in
yeah,
that program, and then the microchips already tracked us, so we go and pick them up.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's so true, but it's
People are going to do
frustrating.
what they get. Yeah, a lot of times they feel like they're in a crisis mode themselves.
Yeah,
It depends on whether feeding your children or you buying dog
that's
food.
true. That's true.
It does come down to that, and even offering the program of, can they stay with you and for a little bit? I mean, they still got to feed them. So we definitely need more resources. We do
Yeah.
have a pet pantry outside of SNP, that where we do provide donated food, or, like I'll go buy some food and I'll put it in the pet pantry.
Yeah.
We're going to bringing that inside, um, you know,
And your expansion.
in our expansion. Yes, we're going to be
Awesome.
bringing it inside because it's hard to keep the food out there.
Yeah.
It
We
is.
have a small pantry as well. It's hard to keep it stocked, but we do. And
It
people
is.
do rely on it.
Yeah.
And I see more and more shelters having that. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I think all of our shelters right now are
Or have
offering.
some sort
Yeah,
of, yeah,
they do.
they do. And I think that's great because if it's just a matter of helping somebody get through a few weeks
Yeah,
with some food,
yeah, that's
like
exactly right.
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, okay, well that's awesome. Let me get back down to here. What's your vision for SNP over the next 5 years?
I want to be in a building the size of Kroger's.
Okay, awesome.
That's what I want. I want to be in a building the size of Kroger's.
And offering just all of those
I'm offering everything we
resources.
can offer. Yeah,
Yeah,
low
yeah.
cost. Like when we do go into the new building, which is not the new building, we're staying in the same building. We're just taking over the whole entire building. We
Oh, right. They're moving. Other people are
Right.
moving out. Okay.
We share an office with Eugene Aaron Dentistry.
Okay.
And so they are building a new office on the other side of the property.
Okay.
And so we're going to be taking over his current office and keeping ours. So on one side it's going to be all surgeries, and the other side.
We'll keep everybody on their toes, but it is an exciting possible program. Yeah.
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 Yeah, we do have one more program that we are going to be starting up, and I'm pretty excited about it. And
Yeah.
it's going to be a huge benefit, huge benefit to the community
Absolutely.
and the
And to
town
rescues.
and to rescues. That's right.
I'm excited. Okay. How can people support SNP right now besides donating, using your programs? Yeah. How can people support SNP?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Word of
Awesome.
mouth. Yeah. Word of mouth,
Okay, cool.
So, and give us a chance. I mean, I
Yeah.
know we're low cost, and I know we're nonprofit, but we have some really good doctors. They graduated from A&M, and we do. We have some really good doctors.
Awesome. How can
Really
people
good
find
staff.
you?
And that you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Google. You can find us at 2095 West Main in League City,
Mhm.
right there on the corner of Newport and 518. You can message me anytime. My name is Tiffany Hill on Facebook.
Okay.
My Facebook's open, so you can message us on Facebook, SNP. You can Google us at, not Google, email us at SNP of Texas, which is SNIPOFTX at gmail.com. Or you can call us at 281-724-91111.
Oh, what a good number. I love
I
it.
love that number. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Thanks for coming out and
Thank you
taking
for
time
having
off
me.
work.
Yes.
Appreciate it. And yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. Get your pets spayed and neutered.
That's right. Yes.